Hey, John Harris here with the Rock Metal Podcast. Join me as we get to go behind the scenes into what goes into producing records and making music as we interview some of our favorite and soon-to-be favorite bands. And today we're chatting with Jyrki 69 of the band 69 Eyes. For fans of him, Poisonblack, and To Die For, we'll be chatting about 69 Eyes' new album, Death of Darkness, mixed and mastered by Miles Walker. We'll get to hear the story about how all of that came to be, ways in which the band reinvented their creative process for this whole record, and so much more. So please stay tuned to the very end. But first, let's check in with our beautiful sponsors. Asher Media Relations, doing public relations for everything loud. For your band needs to be seen and heard in print, online, and radio, head over to AsherMediaRelations.com. That's AsherMediaRelations.com. Mention the Rock Metal Podcast and get your band noticed. Syndicol Music is a full-service agency for musicians offering record label services, marketing, branding, production, and management. Head over to syndicolmusic.com. That's syndicolmusic.com. SYNDICOL music.com. Mention the Rock Metal Podcast and take your music career to the next level. Jyrki 69, thank you so much for coming on to the Rock Metal Podcast today. Go ahead and say hello to all of our beautiful listeners.
To all you vampires out there, here's your favorite Helsinki vampire, Jyrki, the singer of the 69 Eyes. Hope you have a bloody time with us.
A very bloody time indeed. Indeed, my good man. So make sure you have your Bloody Marys at the ready to enjoy while we have this wonderful chat. This record, Death of Darkness, what was the greatest moment for you producing this record, Jyrki?
The idea of breaking out from the regular recording structure or the process that we as well, since we're an 80s band, we've been repeating 12 times before this, which means like you write music certain amount of time, then you go through that music that you had written, and then you choose the ones you want to put on a tape. Then you go to the next, everything's secret, of course. And then you go to another secret process, which is recording the album and then mixing. And then when it's ready, then that is a secret too. And then in secret, you wait certain amount of time until you announce, like, by the way, we have new record coming out. Excuse me, and then comes the drum fill. And then comes a new record out, and then you celebrate with everybody and go on tour, talk about it a little bit, and then go on tour, and then you disappear again for a certain amount of time. So not that anymore. I mean, during this time and space that we are living and been living for quite a long time, that's old school way to do it, but we wanted to try a new way of creating a record. So that was like our A&R guy. He has a golden ear. He's like sort of Finnish version of Clive Davis, Mr. Kabi Hakanen. He said, like, start writing just singles. Write singles. Let's put out singles. Forget the album. Let's write singles and put them out. And maybe later on, if you have enough good material, we'll gather them as an album. And so that's what we did. We wrote songs, put them out as singles, and at some point we had enough material, some of them out already as singles, and then some other tracks, and that seemed to be a good idea to gather them and put them out as an album. But like, we haven't been quiet until now. We've been very loud already a year by releasing these singles, and that's just for me. I'm impatient, and I want to be loud. I want to be heard, seen, and I like this way of like just being available, being also out there for criticism after each song. That was really interesting in the end. I mean, when you put out an album, will you get any kind of feedback from like half of the songs even? But now when you put out song after song, maybe somebody likes one song, somebody who doesn't, it's not the end of the world, So then you put out another song. And that was really practical, modern, and exactly what everybody else, except us who are rockers or in rock bands, we are somehow doomed to still continue the same process. I mean, maybe after a few years, I say like, hey, I wanted to this old school process and blah blah blah. You can guess that, but at this moment, I'm excited about this, and I would like us to continue releasing new music more often than just like wait for some years. Okay, as this album is out now, that the previous one came like already like something like nearly 4 years ago, which is horrible, but and that's something I don't like. So I think we need to start releasing new music at least singles next year or something like that. So
yeah,
that was a revolutionary part of it, and that was very different. And I'm just trying to exaggerate a little bit, like I love to hear more music from my favorite bands. Maybe they start the same process, and there's more music available us from all our favorite artists, and we don't have to wait for certain amount of time once they put out 12 songs, 10 songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the old school 2 to 3 year cycle, as it
or
would be.
4 year or something. Yeah, and then like then the rat race of doing the album touring, and we were part of that rat race all last decade. And on the other hand, it's not a rat race. I mean, many bands would love to be part of that cycle, release an album, do exclusive touring, then went quiet for a little while, and then come out with the new record, and then go for touring. Everybody, I mean, that's an achievement itself. But I mean, it started to feel old and like a rat race at some point, like during the last decade. It didn't bring anything new, It didn't take the band to anywhere. I mean, obviously, we like anywhere means like that. I think that we have something to achieve still. I think there's a bunch of people who would love to hear the 69 Eyes, and at the moment, like there's also new generations coming up who seemingly have found us, and I've heard that there's growing numbers. There's big data and statistics. So according to that, there's a new generation hungry for the 69 Eyes at the moment. So that's exciting. So it's time to change, like to be a band in living in the 20s.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Now, what was the biggest challenge for you on this record?
Well, I mean, I didn't think about it as an album. I just approach every song as individual song. So I wouldn't say that there's a theme or there's some fine line going on. Every song is just not just but every song is. I approach every song like one by one. Even the ones which have not come out as singles, they were songs. And I left everything for our guitarist, who mainly writes the songs. Like, he can figure out the track order, which he did. Like, actually spent a lot of time for that, which I was scratching my head, like, I wonder why. But I found a reason when I listened to the whole album from CD. Noticed that for the first time a couple of weeks ago. So I understood that the track order was really nice. So no wonder he spent so much time on that. But the challenge was like, it was just, I think the challenge is now. Like, I'm actually, the album comes out tomorrow as we are doing this interview. So I'm actually weirdly kind of nervous. I don't know what, I mean, I don't expect, what happens when the album comes out? It's out there. People will write down their comments to our social media platforms. There's probably some reviews. What else? So and we have a new single coming out and a music video also. So but strangely, I feel like being a little bit nervous. But it's an emotion, and it's good to have an emotion, right? Like at least I'm not like seasoned. I don't care. I don't give a F. I'm nervous. The album comes out tomorrow. Whoa, So that's the challenge. It's like, and also like every time you make music and records, we've been doing few records earlier. So you make the music and you enjoy it a lot. You have good time. You put like I'm proud of the lyrics. I'm proud of the emotions and proud of the vibes that we create, proud of the singing, proud of the sounds, proud of the, like how the band sounds, and we're tight, and everything. It's a fantastic experience to record an album overall in general. It might be stressful at sometimes, like which is, it belongs to, we need to be stressful in life in general. So that sometimes it's like stressful or schedule, you have to own, or haven't finished the lyrics and I'm supposed to go to sing them tonight. What should I do? And those kind of things, but I enjoy them fully. But the one thing which surprises every time after this is like when you see the first review somewhere and you forgot the whole, totally the feeling, how it feels when you see the review of like, it's like, you forget the whole thing that somebody's reviewing what you're doing. And we were just talking about it. Does the reviews even matter these days? To whom who they serve? I mean, or are they just messages from specialists who have special ears? Are they messages for the band, like this specialist in this country, these guys over there, this person who's writing for this magazine thinks this, and is it like a improvement, like feedback from specialists around the world? Does it serve for listeners? Because now it's open platform. Everybody, the fans can leave their message like a heart or fire or then something else.
100. Don't forget 100.
Yeah, 100 or devil's horns, or something like that. And like this really simply strong guy who's moshing with the two horns up. Like I don't know if that even exists anymore, but
and the drunk girl in the back. Woo!
Yeah, something like So the most challenging thing is to start to see the reviews, because you're never prepared for that, but I'm honored that somebody bothers to write the review as well, and or fans bother to leave a message, because this is all about communication with all of us, among all of us, and my communication, like with the world, our band's communication with the world. We communicate by making music, bringing some kind of different vibes than anybody else, and it's all good. But that's a challenge to these reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is about that review process. But I've heard that before, that with the advent of how quickly a band is able to receive feedback in almost real time with social media now, what is the review process? Does it still even matter? But it sounds like it kind of does. I mean, it sounds like there's somebody out there who, as you said, has almost a direct message for the band.
Yeah, and it's like our record label sends, links to their reviews. All of a sudden there's a first mail which has like 5 links, and it's like, oh, reviews. Shit, I forgot this. Because you don't think of that when you make music, because you are so it's such a like beautiful thing to do, create something, and you put yourself there fully, and then you don't, it's just like it's the best, one of the best things ever, that to create something. So then all of a sudden then there comes the reviews, and like, oh no, I forgot these reviews. And do they matter? Well, they do. They obviously, you wonder, like, hold on, like what and even if it's positive, and most likely this time they have been extremely positive, and that's fantastic also. And on the other hand, I mean, but we've been living such a long time, doing records with this band such a long time. So there is also like a very long period that we got like the worst reviews ever, especially here in Finland, in our native country. Like, and now those records are considered as classics. Like seriously, like not only in our band scale, but somewhere else, I pop up like, oh hey, the best dark metal records of like something like 2000, early 2000s or something. And then I see the record which got like 5-star in the local newspaper here, and it's considered as classic. But that's how it goes. And even as I mentioned it, obviously it mattered back then. But on the other hand, nowadays, what matters is that you are mentioned. Like it's any kind of attention is always good. Any publicity is good, and it's really it's more easier, at least for me, to understand than it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Speaking of time passing, I have two questions for you, Jyrki.
Okay.
One is more to come, but let's go ahead and check in with our beautiful sponsors. Two Madsen is responsible for producing, mixing, and mastering some of the best metal for over the last 20 years. From Meshuggah to The Haunted to Poisonblack, Kemper Profiler packs for guitar players, and Easy Drummer expansion packs for programming drums. Two Madsen can take your production to a level previously unheard. Head over to twomadsen.com. That's twomadsen.com. TUEMADSEN. Click contact, fill out the info for your next project, and let Two know that the Rock Metal Podcast sent you. Wormhole Death is a modern record label, publishing, and film production company born in 2008. Getting signed to this label means global distribution, publishing, and marketing with Wormhole Death's roster of global partnerships. Head over to wormholedeath.com. That's wormholedeath.com. Submit your band and let them know the Rock Metal Podcast sent you. And they might be intertwined, but how would you define success at this stage of your career? And the second question to that is, what would you tell the Jyrki 69 of 30 years ago? What advice would you have for him?
Let's start with the success. So, because I'm extremely excited to tell you this, that we had our record label Atomic Fire had a conversation with us a couple of weeks ago, because our streaming numbers, the streaming numbers of the 69 Eyes, have grown extremely fast, like quite recently, and with the last single, the title track "Death of Darkness," which came out about a month ago, we hit like 500,000 listeners on Spotify, but also other platforms. We've been growing really fast, and that's they said like 2,000%, and also like I said 2,000, not 200, 2,000%, and also like as they've been studying the big data, because they've been analyzing, and they were like, hey, what's going on? It's mostly people who are under 25.
Wow.
So this is like something I would say this is success. We managed to reach, let's say, we're not doing anything, but the new generations discover us that way. So it's amazing, and we're super happy, because I think we have something, and we deliver, and we have something that any other bands have anymore. So I'm excited about this, and I would say this is success. Success as creating new music is like there's your amount of listeners is growing. Without like there hasn't been any campaigns. We didn't even have a new album out or anything. They just have been starting to grow, because we're unique, and new generations have discovered that. I think TikTok has something to do with that as well. But that's successful, and that's exciting and interesting.
Yeah, very exciting.
And then what would I say to me, like did you say 30 years ago? I mean, this cliche itself, but I wouldn't have any advice. I would say that, don't listen to any advice, because that's what happened. I did. Nobody was nobody was advising ever. And I just going with the instinct. So occasionally I've been running into difficulties, which mean that I'll be different than people have expected me and us to be. We've been criticized not to be professionals, and something that we have wanted to do. For instance, like we're always being, because this is an adventure for our band, for us 5 guys. We're a gang, we're friends. This is an adventure for us. Like for instance, this summer we're playing some festivals, and that's the same excitement. Like when we ever get first time to play at the festivals, we're excited to see our, heroes on the same backstage feel. Like this time around, there's going to be Mötley Crüe, for instance. So I'm excited to see Nikki Sixx walking around, and that's the excitement. So like much earlier, not even 30 years ago, but later on, when we were getting somewhere, we still are excited. Like, hey, can we stay at this festival a little bit later or come earlier or something because we want to see this and this band, maybe Motorhead, and so on. And then, the criticism was that that's not professional. You should do it professionally, which means like boring. You should be boring, do it in boring way. So that's where all the criticism has come. So I think I wouldn't give any advice, and I would say don't listen to anybody, because that's a way, act like your heart tells you. And that's what we have been doing. We've been listening to our heart, and our heart is pulsating along the beat of rock and roll.
Pulsating along the beat of rock and roll, baby, which takes me to my next question. I read in the EPK because I was looking for, who produced the record, and I read that it was a young, fresh producer who's not old enough to be an 80s guy and who brought a special layer. So maybe tell us a bit about that. What was that like working with this person? Was it a particular choice to work with this person? Take us through that.
Well, that was a thing that we got a brand new record label here in Finland, and along with the label, there's a bunch of guys, and this fresh producer. He's not fresh in that sense, but he's been producing like the biggest artists here in Finland, and also like a legendary Hanoi Rocks guy, Michael Monroe, and currently he's actually producing a new Sami Jaffa album, the bass player of Hanoi Rocks. But so he has other feet in a contemporary high-end pop music, but on the other hand, he's also like putting his hand on real dirt, like operating with the glam and sleaze rockers, like Hanoi guys and us. So he came along with the new Finnish label, and he wanted us to, he sort of forced us to play also live once in a while in the studio, which we haven't done for a little while, because in the modern technology, you don't even have to see your band members when you're recording an album. But this guy was like, hey, that's a whole key. Let's try to, do something together. And that was also like set us on fire, because we hadn't tried that for a really long time. So, and also like he's hungry to show that, like, he's been doing high-end pop music. So he's hungry to show that he knows rock. And of course, I throw a couple of like criticism there for him, just to irritate him, to get his claws out. So that was interesting. And besides, he has this totally different ideology for the things. And then in the end, when he was arranging and producing and squeezing the best out of us, then the whole package was sent to Atlanta for Miles Walker, who mixed the album. So, it was we found this very good process. I hate these words. I mean, it should be like rock and roll, but like this, that we recorded in Finland and got the guy who was like seriously interested in, like showing, like he was also making the record as, showing what he can do, in a way. So that was really cool. And then, it was finalized by Miles Walker in Atlanta, which is the guy who's been, mixing like U2 and Coldplay and Beyonce and those kind of artists. So that was really cool, fresh dream team.
Yeah, very cool indeed. Very cool. What's the number one thing that you would like people listening to the podcast to do? And that could be go out into the night and do vampire things. That could be, something special like follow your heart to the next victim. Even, the place to drop what you're supposed to drop, go pick up the record. But what's the number one thing that you would like people to do?
I would like them to open up their favorite streaming service, found Dark Throne there, and pick up the track Graveyard Slut and play it loud.
Graveyard Slut. Play it loud.
Dark Throne, baby.
All right. Well, that is absolutely fantastic. And that concludes all my questions. So head over to therockmetalpodcast.ca. There you can get the transcript for today's episode. You can see some music videos, ways to connect with the 69 Eyes, and so much more. So please go ahead and head over to therockmetalpodcast.ca. In the meantime, Jyrki69, thank you so much for coming on to the Rock Metal Podcast today.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode of the Rock Metal Podcast. Stay tuned because next week we're going to be chatting with Matthias and Marcus, vocalist and guitarist of the band Lemori. They work with their producer to get a heavier sound than they've ever gotten before. How did they do it? Well, you'll have to tune in. So go ahead and hit subscribe in your podcast player, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next week.